Happy day, vibe tribe. So, I figured out that my computer got unplugged while we were streaming, so everything was cut out. Anywho, I remember in one of my last streams, well, not one of my last streams, one of my most recent streams, we were talking about relationships, and we were talking about chivalry, and how, the generation of chivalry now is the generation of social media, and how the in-between social media and chivalry, is between, honesty and doing stuff with people, traveling, going out to eat, having dates, it's summer, so swimming, I would say attending the bar, bars and clubs. Right now, with my program, I'm doing good and I haven't relapsed on alcohol or drugs. So, that is a plus. Sadie. And, so I've been talking about how, it requires effort, and sometimes it's a subtle effort, and sometimes it's a physical effort to have sometimes it's a physical effort to, drive out to see someone, bring them to, now with, not knowing how people's home situations are, the money that you can spend on alcohol, maybe you can have a room for the night, or maybe you can, work on bringing people closer to you and work on them being closer to you, I think it's important that you tell people how you feel. I think it's important that you express to people how you feel. And, I think it's important to bring people, together, bring yourself closer to people and, tell people how you feel. That's important. And for me, sometimes it's been months, sometimes it's been weeks and years, and unless you know how people feel, maybe they want to spend more time with you, maybe they want to utilize their pay to travel, have a room somewhere and, just explore. And maybe they can, you can stay with them,
Now let's talk about Google AdSense. If you've ever visited a blog or website
maybe
and
attend
seen banner
parties
ads or
together.
little text ads
You
sprinkled
know,
around,
I
that's
could be a
AdSense at
DD
work.
now.
It's an easy way to monetize
Whereas
a website
before,
or blog by allowing Google to
I
place ads
definitely
on your
needed
site.
a DD.
You earn money every time someone
I
views or
needed
clicks on those
someone to
ads.
be my
So how do you
DD.
get started? First, you'll need a website or blog. Don't worry, we'll
And
cover how to
things
build
of
one in just a
such.
minute. Once you've got your site up and running, head to the Google AdSense website and apply for an account. Google will review your site to ensure it meets their guidelines. This means having original content, a clean design,
whenever you enjoy drinking,
contact to show you're a
that's
legitimate
why,
creator.
that's why it would be
Once
important
approved, Google provides
to
you
have
with
a
a
room,
code to place on your website. This
you
code
know,
dynamically generates ads that are relevant to your
to
content. For
bring
example, if
people,
you're writing about travel,
it's
your site might
important
display ads for
to
luggage or
express
flight booking
effort,
services.
it's
And the best
important
part,
to
AdSense works in the background while you focus on
normally
creating
guys,
content.
they
To
don't talk
maximize
about
your
their
earnings with
feelings too
AdSense,
much.
you'll need traffic.
Sometimes
We'll cover
it's
traffic
hard to
strategies in just
read
a
guys.
moment. But remember,
And,
the more visitors your site gets, the
in
higher
a
the
guy's
potential
mind,
revenue.
maybe he's
Now let's get
wanting,
into
someone
website
to
building.
read
Your
their
website is your
mind.
digital home.
And,
It's where you'll host your blog posts, display
that's
affiliate
hard
links,
to
and
do,
run AdSense ads.
especially
Building a website
whenever,
might sound intimidating, but it's easier
know.
than ever, even if you're not tech savvy. Step 1. Choose a domain and hosting.
whenever
Your
you are
domain
trying
is
to
your
figure
website's
out how
name,
you
like
feel,
myawesomefitnessblog.com. Choose something
And
memorable and related to your niche.
maybe,
For hosting, I recommend
the
platforms
saddest
like
thing
Bluehost or SiteGround.
is whenever
They're
two people
beginner-friendly
feel the
and
same,
affordable.
and then,
Step 2. Install WordPress.
one of the
WordPress
people
is
don't,
a popular
exert
content
enough
management
effort
system that powers over 40% of the web. It's
to
free, customizable,
maintain a
and perfect for
relationship,
beginners. Most hosting
because-
providers have a one-click
because
WordPress
one thing or
installation
another.
process. Step 3.
And,
Design your website. Choose a clean, user-friendly theme. You can find
I
free themes
appreciate
directly
the
in
guys
WordPress,
that,
or go premium for
they're
more customization
very
options.
self-conscious
Add
about,
essential pages like your homepage,
how,
an about
if they have a
page,
girlfriend
blog
or
section,
whatnot,
and a contact
they're very
page.
self-conscious
Step
about
4.
how she
Publish
feels,
high-quality content. Your
they
content
don't
is
do
the heart of
things
your
to,
website. Write blog posts that
put
provide
the
value to
relationship
your
at
audience.
risk,
For example, if you're in the fitness niche,
no
create
cheating
posts
or
like
nothing
top
like
10
that.
yoga mats
And
for
whenever
beginners,
you
or
don't,
how to
you're
stay
not
fit while
necessarily
traveling.
sure,
Use tools
there
like
are
Canva
people
to add
that
visuals and
have
make your
hooked
posts
up,
stand out. If
and,
WordPress feels a bit
maybe
too
they should be in a
don't worry.
relationship.
Platforms
That
like
requires
Wix make
one
website building
person,
incredibly easy, even
saying,
for
well,
absolute
hey,
beginners.
will you be my
Wix is a
girlfriend?
drag and drop
Or,
website builder, meaning you can
or the
literally
opposite.
click, drag,
You know,
and
I've
place elements wherever
I've
you
never
want.
asked out a guy
What's great about
before,
Wix is its
so
simplicity. It offers
you know,
beautiful templates for all kinds of
I think
websites,
it's,
from blogs to
you
online
know, it's
stores.
always just
You don't need to know any
worked out.
coding,
It's always
and you can
just,
customize your site with just a
played
few
out for
clicks.
it. Well, played,
For
it's
example,
played for
if
me.
you're starting a photography
You know,
blog, Wix has pre-designed
so,
templates tailored for photographers. Just
and
add your
I'm
text and
blessed.
images and you're good to go. Wix
And,
also includes
you
built-in
know,
SEO tools, so you can optimize your site.
oh my gosh, all of you freaking
Plus, they
lovers.
have
I'm sorry.
integrations for features like contact forms and
This freaking thing has been, how long? 13 minutes. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, the majority of the stream, you've been hearing this other voice talking about e-commerce and talking about crypto. And, the hilarious thing is that on my YouTube, or not on my YouTube, on my Facebook, I have all, my screenshots of all the places that I had, put my coin in, and, for people to buy. I made people quite a lot of money. And that's a blessing. It's definitely a blessing. So, while that person was talking for the majority of the stream, I have been talking about how it's important to reach out to people, to tell people how you feel. If you've hooked up with someone and you think that you two would make a good relationship, describe to the person how you would enjoy the relationship to be. Some people are into open relationships, so they don't have any boundaries or limitations on how they want the relationship to be. Some people would rather you two stay together and journey through life together. I was reading a blog of a study that was done, and the data statistics on men that are in relationships, they live longer. And I believe it's the same for women. The life expectancy has changed. Women are expected to live longer nowadays than men because of stressors and things like that, adrenaline, and the things that men are more preemptive to be adrenaline junkies and stuff. So I think it's important to talk to the people that you care about. Not many people are mind readers, and if they were, sometimes they act in ways that, negate you having to exude that extra effort, and sometimes effort is, exuded and in the wrong ways, and that's just the name in the game. You have to, I was talking about how I've been single for many years, and that doesn't mean that I haven't had the opportunities to be in serious relationships again. Maybe they didn't know that I required I'm required a little bit of honesty to in this hookup culture. Maybe you hook up with someone and the relationship is just hooking up, so some would call it a friend with benefits, and some would call it a part of hookup culture, and sometimes you need to tell people how you feel. And I think it's important for guys to tell girls how they feel, because and different ways show how they feel, and with culture, with society. With culture, with society, with, social media, it's hard to know if someone is just for you. And I've been a hopeless romantic. I've been in, every relationship that I've been in that was, a serious relationship, there was no cheating, and they had, they'd let me know that, how they wanted the relationship to be. And with some of, them, they're like, I would rather you live with me, or rather us live together. I would rather, take care of you and, have you be my best friend and my lover and my soulmate, and it's so weird to be talking about that, and to and sometimes in the background, they're talking about crypto, they're talking about all this stuff. I think it's nice to have this conversation because I have many stories, and and I feel like each person is different, and I have stories with people, and I have stories from my perspective, and from my perspective now, I believe that it's important for guys to be honest, whereas before, I would say that I think it's important for girls to be forthcoming about how they feel, and so I watched this movie the other day, and it was about this girl from India that she worked at a call center, and she had started having a crush on one of her customers, and her customers started having a crush on her. Now, she talked in an American voice while she was at her job, and whenever she would sign out of her job, she would talk in her talk how she would normally talk, and she told her customer that she lived in San Diego. And so her customer lived in New York, and he was having a business trip to San Diego, and he's like, hey, I would really like to meet you. Because they would talk every day, because his identity was stolen, and and so she would call him and let him know, all the transactions on his card. And so she decided to, spend her money to be in America, and it was her very first time in America, and they were going to meet up at this hotel, and they met up, and whenever she saw him, he thought that the girl sitting next to her was her, because she spoke in a very good American accent. He didn't know what she looked like, and she didn't talk in an Indian accent, so he wouldn't have a clue what she looked like. And so she was the only Indian girl sitting at the bar, and he walked, she was too nervous to approach him, so she sat there for a minute, and as he walked up to her, he walked up to the girl that was next to her, and then that was sitting next to her at the bar, and he kind of blew it, because she was like, ah, man, fuck this guy, he's just probably just a player, and da-da-da-da-da. She called her friend in India. She was like, oh, I made a mistake, da-da-da-da-da. So the day that she was signing out of the hotel, he had bumped into her and knocked her down, and he fell on top of her. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She had kind of fainted because, she had hit her head. And so he had invited her to dinner. And at dinner, he started kind of catching feelings for her. You know, she lied and said that she was a nurse. And she didn't tell him that she was the girl. And in his mind, that was like the girl of his dreams. You know, the girl on the phone. You know, they would talk on the phone every day. And so, he was walking with her in the hotel lobby, and his boss saw him and her. And his boss is married to an Oriental woman, so he saw her with, he saw him with a woman from India. He was very impressed, and he gave her a hotel room, one of the best hotel rooms, room service and all. And so she was staying in the hotel, and he invited her to a party that his boss was having. And in his mind, he kind of thought that it would impress the boss, though there was something about this girl that he was enthralled with, and he had a girl back at home, and she had a fiance, because in Indian culture, arranged marriage is something very common. So her parents had arranged her marriage, and they, throughout the movie, they start falling in love. And then, towards the end of the movie, she travels back to India. He finds out that she has a fiance. He's very hurt. And then she finds out, whenever he went to apologize, or she went to apologize, his fiance that he was thinking about breaking up with shows up, and she thought that she was just like room service or something. So towards the end of the movie, he was giving a speech at his best friend's wedding. His best friend had, married the girl that he was with, but they started dating whenever they were in high school or something like that. And they were getting married. And while he was giving his best man speech, they had a camp for girls and a camp for boys, and his best friend decided to, swim over to, or, paddle over to the other side, and, he found the girl of his dreams. And so he was talking about that. He's like, and the girl, waiting for you on the other side. And before he can say other side, he's like, I gotta go. He ran to the airport and was looking for the girl that, looking for the Citibank building. And she was there, and he told his fiance that he couldn't be with her, and so he broke it off with his fiance. She said the same thing, and she broke it off with her fiance, and they were both still thinking about each other and stuff. That it required the guy's action of, flying out to India to be with her, and to figure out their relationship. And it was a really good movie. I'm great. How are you? Stiggity, stiggity. And did you ever retrieve your vitamins? So that movie made me realize, how important it is for guys to be honest, about their feelings. And, for girls also, to be honest. I think it's traditional for a guy to ask a girl, to be his girlfriend. That's how, all my relationships began. He was like, will you be my girlfriend? And, it was, it was feasible and all sorts of stuff, and, figure out how they want the relationship to be and everything. And so I thought it was really important. And while I was talking, the crypto podcast or whatnot was playing in the background, so it kind of, it kind of threw me off a little bit. And the duration of how I was talking about, there's hookup culture, there's all sorts of stuff. And I think it's good to be honest and forthcoming about how, what you expect from people, what you would want from people, how you feel about people, how you feel about yourself, and, and just to be honest. And sometimes honesty hurts people's feelings. In the long run, it's better to have your feelings hurt and know what's what than to not know what's what and guess wrong and, end up hurting somebody by, not being 100% honest. I learned because there's times where I was not 100% honest and I ended up hurting the people that I love. And, that's because I didn't know if they were being 100% honest with me. And I understand that that's kind of a childish way to, to think about things. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was about a girl in a call center, and a guy that lived in New York. And I think it's important to, tell people how you feel. If you are, attracted to someone, let them know that you're attracted to them. Because you could be attracted to a person and not want to be with a person, and then you could be attracted to a person and want to be with a person. And sometimes people label being with a person in different ways. Sometimes people label being with a person, I'm with that person, I slept with that person. And maybe, the whole, that would, sometimes you sleep with someone and it's not a big thing. And sometimes you sleep with someone and, you meet your soulmate and you, oh, well, they didn't tell me how they felt. And I didn't know how they felt. I didn't know how they thought about me. They might be attracted to me, they not want to be with me. They might be attracted to me and have slept with me, and I might have been the best life of their life. I don't know these things, and just because, it requires, you require honesty. Sometimes, whenever someone's on, like in an AA group, and people sharing, it inspires other people to share their honest truth and their stories. Sometimes, nobody shares, and the repetition of them sharing and being honest, sparks an intuitive interest for you to share and be honest. And I remember, I don't know, I remember I have been drunk dialed many times, and it's hard to read what because I don't know, there's drunk dialing and then there's drunk commenting, and sometimes you be commenting and it's like, yes, I'm, things and stuff and such, You have to look through your posts and be like, oh, that one made no sense. Maybe I should edit my post for it to make sense, because maybe only you know what you were thinking in your drunk mind, Now, that is, and sometimes people with their pride, sometimes they act opposite of how they truly feel. And it's not until you talk to them, or that you're honest with them, and, encourage them to engage in honesty, that, how they really feel. There's people that have resting bitch faces, and you would never, oh, that's how you were thinking? But, no idea. Why did you say this or do this? They, with a little honesty, oh, maybe I didn't see things that way. Now that makes sense. And sometimes if you act in ways that are nonsensical to people, it's hard for them to, of course, it's easy for them to love you. It's hard for them to know where you're at, in your, communication and stuff, Sometimes you're angry, and sometimes you say things or act in ways when you're angry, and it throws people off. They're like, because maybe they think you're talking about them, and literally you're talking about something completely different. It requires a little bit of honesty or a little bit of effort for you to, to realize, oh, somebody I care about might have thought I was on a tangent, and maybe they thought that I was talking about them whenever I was just talking about, people in general that are not them. So, relationships require working at. You need to work at your relationships, because you know, if you don't work at your relationships, you know, you can't expect things to fall on your lap. And for me, things have kind of fallen on my lap. You know, I've had situations and circumstances where, things were totally set up that I could, date someone, and because the way I was acting, or maybe because I was reading things wrong, I required a little bit more honesty and tenacity and effort, and maybe some people are similar to me, because I had always expected things to just fall in my lap. And I believe that that is a thing. That things can just, out of nowhere, people can message you, and you can have new friends. Or people can message you, and, things and stuff and such. If people are messaging you, and they're messaging everyone else, maybe they tell you, hey, how things are. They're like, maybe they're messaging a bunch of people, maybe, they have something in mind, as they're messaging these people, I remember, some people used to utilize social media to see how many, if any, they can have a relationship, because more girls nowadays are into hookup culture, and guys nowadays are into relationships. It used to be flipped around. Girls used to be into relationships. Guys used to be into hooking up. Now guys see through all their friend, they realize that they're at that age that they realize everyone around them's married, has kids. Maybe they have kids. Maybe they never were married. Maybe sometimes guys that have kids, they don't believe in love anymore, because the only love that they know is the love for their kids, and maybe the only relationship that they know is the discontent for the mother of the child. Maybe there's so many, and there's also so many guys out here that don't have kids, that never been married, and that want to be married, want to have kids and things. How would people know that unless you were honest about that to some extent? And of course I can make a little comedy out of it, because it is these are things that people post about, and back in the day, and guys would have more respect for girls that were reserved. Now I don't know if guys want somebody that's been running around, and maybe girls don't want a guy that's been running around. Though, to judge a book by its cover is something that people do, and it's not always conducive, because you could be guessing wrong. That requires a little bit more honesty, for you to receive some honesty, about things and stuff and such. about their life, about their lifestyle. Some girls are more in love with success than relationships. Some girls, that's the last thing they're thinking about is relationships. Some girls are, thinking about relationships. Sometimes people cross over the threshold of understanding because they had never had their own understanding plop on their lap. Or vice versa. Maybe you recognize or you realize a girl from afar, and you know her, her face and her name is, known to you. Maybe you've always been a fan. Maybe you've always, wanted to be, more of a friend. Maybe you've always been friends, and over the time you're just better and better friends. And there's many people that become in relationships with people that they're close to because with the social media age and everything, you have to think about convenience. So rather convenient, exude a little bit more effort. That's not hard. And I could be mentioning this to myself, because maybe I haven't, exuded, the effort necessary for people to be, and maybe I have, So everything that I'm talking about could be relevant to myself, though, I've realized that the guy community could use a little tune-up in the department of effort. Communication is effort. Reaching out to people, that's effort. Being honest, that's effort. And that's showing your character. So, in showing your character, what is that? That is effort. So, I think it's important to think about these things because, if you don't think about these things or these things aren't mentioned to you in a way that you could relate to or in a way that that could at least make you think like, how would you label my character? Maybe the government knows who you're meant to be with, or something like that. And, it requires the right effort, rather than being at the right place at the right time. Oh, you're at the right place at the right time. Did you exude any effort beyond that? Because the situation just plopped on your lap. What are you going to do with it? And that, that is kind of my TED Talks today. Because I think it's really important that, you let people know where they are in your life. Whether you see them as a friend or whether you're in love with the person. How is a person gonna know unless you exude that effort? You want to reach out to people in a way that, they make it more comfortable, more easy to reach out to you, and vice versa. Or to stay in touch with you, That requires effort, And sometimes it requires two to tango, So, I can't wait to to rewatch this stream, you know? You know? I'm not gonna block you. Why would you say that I would block you, Hussein? And I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I've just started to become, more active with, I could translate from Arabic. So translate page from Arabic, translate to English. Stiggity, stiggity. So, I'm happy about this coffee. I've been drinking it, I've been drinking it at a nice rate. And here, man, my face is shiny. A little bit of powder. That helps a lot. And you have to forgive yourself. You also have to forgive yourself, for the times that you've been maybe too honest. Maybe, maybe your honesty was, maybe, I have to remember, those times where, I would drunk text people, and I would be angry, and I'd be emotional, and I'd be wanting to have, a conversation, and sometimes text messages are just tough, It's tough to translate the tone. It's tough to translate, the tone of the message sometimes. You want them to respond in a way that, in a way that makes sense to how you were trying to, because people sometimes are so underhanded, and they're so subtle with how they are, Sometimes, you just require, and if you have been that way, where it's like, try to be honest with that person and said all the wrong things. That's alright, That doesn't mean that's you, It doesn't mean that's how you are, you know. Sometimes people, their attitude, sometimes people can change from moment to moment, and not their whole personality, just, what they're thinking at the time, and how that makes them feel, and, how they're feeling in the moment. Are they under the influence? Are they, and all that stuff and things. And if they were, and, you forgive that person, that's important. Because sometimes you put your foot in your mouth. Sometimes in the best situations you put your foot in your mouth. At least you were trying to be honest. At least you were trying to be honest. Even if you didn't make any sense, you sometimes have to look back at the things that you said. That's why it's good to keep a journal, because you could look back at how you were feeling, or look back at the things that you said, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm not that person, so, and you can, you can fit the circumstances to fit you, even if things fall in your lap, and you don't know how to, you might not know how to handle it. And maybe, maybe you've never felt a certain way before. My friends used to call me a virgin because I had never been with someone that looked like me. I had never been with, another Hispanic person before. I never, and this is something, things and stuff and such. They used to call me a virgin because, my boyfriends at the time were white, and sometimes that would, upset me, because it's like, I knew that there was racism and stuff, the term far and few between, sometimes you have you meeting someone that looks like you is far and few between. Sometimes, someone that looks like you, they might dream of, they might, want to be with someone that is, that is also Hispanic, or also olive complexion, And, I'm mentioning that because, whenever I was dating, white guys, my friends that are not white, that are also olive complexion, they would be mad at me, and I wouldn't understand, until people started calling me a virgin. They're like, and I didn't understand that that's what it meant. Virgin because you haven't dated people that are olive complexion. I was so confused. I was like a little kid. I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Clearly I'm not a virgin because, I've been in, relationships. They're like, no, Jenny, you don't understand. And then the whole world of olive complexion came to me, and it was like, Jenny, you're amazing. Here's the whole world on a silver platter. And I was like, how do I handle this? Grace, say now, you happy? I am happy. Oh, there's still the option. Translate page from Arabic. Translate. Is it going to translate? It's not translating. What the heck is Google? Oh! What? I'm so freaking I'm so freaking happy! What's wrong with you? Are you mad at me? I'm happy. I'm a happy girl. Don't bring my name seriously. Oh my gosh, God, you lookers. I wonder who's talking Arabic now because I can read it. I will not talk with you. Do not bring my name seriously. Hey, you with the complexion. Hey, yeah, you sexy thing. I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles. You sexy thing. Bow, 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 bow. Please, I mean, you can transfer comedy to meanness, and you can transfer meanness to comedy, and you can transfer comedy to also, you can transfer that to niceness. I like celebrating it. Bow, 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 bow. You need to celebrate. You need to celebrate because you sexy. Sexy thing, you. Asking why he's asking me if I blocked him. Clearly, I'm not mad at him. And maybe I just didn't read his message. Maybe I was, talking to my phone and didn't realize, maybe I didn't realize what you were saying. Bow, 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 bow. Beautiful. Less than an automatic away. You less than an automatic away. He's gonna. Oh, I felt you felt. What did he feel on you? Miracles? You sexy thing, you. We saw your nervousness. You know, now I could read your messages, you know, so you shouldn't be nervous, you know, and you should be happy because you also understand English. Question, what makes you feel sad in chemistry? Lack of information, all postponed. No, now you're having more information. No, nobody blocked me. Gosh, golly gee willikers. Nobody blocked me. And I didn't block anyone. Then shut up. No, I'm not gonna shut up. You know, I'm now gonna show you more attention, more affection for your life treating your soul. You know. I mean, I don't think and I don't think about being rich, honestly. I see that as, it's not useless. It's cool to think about. Sometimes, whenever I was a little girl, first I would pretend that I was not rich, and then I used to pretend that I was rich. And then I would play on the playground. I used to pretend the playground was my home. Because at first I used to play in the woods. Yeah, I used to play in the woods and I used to pretend that, I used to make dirt pies and stuff. Now, and then I upgraded myself while I was playing pretend. And then I started playing at the playground. And I was upgraded, and then I pretended that the wagon was my luxury car, and I used to pull the wagon around. I used to pull my friends around in the wagon, and I used to be like, yeah, we're driving around in a luxury car. I used to run around with the wagon real fast. I was like, yeah, I'm giving you a ride in my luxury car. Toyota. What was it? Nicholas only seems to be in the chat whenever I'm paying attention to my mobile stream. Or farm family is true, that is normal. Sometimes a person thinks like that, but this thing I see makes the person attached to his family, and there are things he can't do. He can do according to his family. I bet you guys think I'm freaking genius now that I can read everything. This is amazing. This is amazing. Thank you, Google. On the contrary, is the who formed her with us and a husband, me and her. Maybe, I don't know. In Arabic, do they have what is arranged marriages? Or do you just find places to, you meet at the mosque, you meet at the, in prayer meetings, and you're like, you're gonna be my wife. Let me know whenever you wanna be my wife. And then she's like, yeah, I wanna be your wife. My goal is that the aspect aims to revive the Arab and Islamic civilization. Do you think that they're too gentrified? Do you think that gentrification, has added to the revival of the Arab and Islamic civilization. Adam seems to slave, defends only what he loves. Do you see your soul if you are insulting me in the broadcast? I didn't see it. You're distracting only with your soul and your... I love people. I love a man that I can talk about. I can talk about spirituality with, and the things that I love about the Arab and the Islamic civilization is that they are so chivalrous in the way that they speak and the way that they communicate with each other. They're just they really care. And they're very intelligent whenever it comes to spirituality and the bringing together of spirituality with, I wouldn't mention the New Age because, the New Age is kind of gentrified. And there is something special. It's not mocking. Whenever we talk seriously, sometimes whenever you're so honest, you have to be honest in a way that you can laugh at yourself, because a good laugh at yourself, or a good, speaking your honesty in a way that you can, bring a sense of comedy, that's what I think, that's what I think needs to be revived, in ways that you need to not be scared to not, to sometimes your honesty, you have to speak out of line for your honesty. And you have to automatically forgive yourself and, realize that it is not dangerous for you to show a part of yourself that is not necessarily... So, gentrification can work two ways. There can be an Arab Islamic gentrification, and maybe that comes off sometimes spiritual or it comes off negative. And sometimes, whenever you want to be honest, you don't want to be negative with your honesty. Because I've done that before, and I've, if you're not aware that you're being negative with your honesty, you want to be honest in a way that you can laugh at yourself. You want to be honest in a way that you can, you could reread what you're writing and, not feel like a slave to the system. Because that's what I enjoy about the American culture. We can say things that won't, we won't have our freaking heads chopped off if we say things the wrong way. Because we are utilizing our creative means of communication in a way that is honest. And that honesty brings us respect because, if, you're not going to be, you're not going to be attacked for, saying how you feel. If you say how you feel in a negative way, then you're prompting a bunch of people to be negative with you. And that is kind of a sort of a gentrification. It's not, and it is dangerous in certain countries. That's why, the American culture has been, absorbed into so many other cultures, because the level of honesty, people can talk about their feelings. People cannot feel like, it's wasting their time to utilize their communication. Because in life, sometimes all you have is your communication. And you want to utilize your communication in a sophisticated way. And, sometimes you could utilize that sophistication in a way that is, sometimes it's nice to be crazy. Sometimes it's nice to, utilize, the power of your communication. And that is something that's not gentrification, that's adaptation to the surrounding, because, whenever everyone is translating what you're saying and realizing how much, potential there is in your communication, and you know how to speak English, you're just choosing to be, sophisticated to the way that you communicate. And that is something to be, it's not being it's not, to be a mess in front of people, that's alright. God still loves you. Sometimes, to be, that's something I love about, your style, because it's comfortable. It's not a mess. It's comfortable and it's traditional. And the way that you have a sophisticated, way of communicating your opinion. And sometimes it's almost poetic, and it's amazing that, of course, within your communication, there's always, like I said, you could be ready to fight, that's alright. Because at least you're upholding one certain certainty within your, it's not within stigma, within delegation. Sometimes it's some people's job to be honest. Sometimes it's some people's job to be sophisticated. Sometimes it's some people's job to fight and, to make arguments. And sometimes it's people's job to, to read into the way that people are not exposing themselves. They're exposing their honesty. That they're exposing their effort. That is to be respected. Haji. And sometimes people are honest in a way that is negative, and God still loves you. You are still, you are still blessed. Time is it? It's 8, or it's almost 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. It's 3 in the morning. Sometimes the best time to utilize your communication. Because even if you feel as though you're struggling, God hears you. And God respects you and understands you and wants to show you that in ways that are positive. And it doesn't have to be positively negative, because some people, that's how some people live. They live to think about how they're going to die, and some people live to think about how they're going to enjoy their life and how their life is going to be a long, happy, prosperous life. You know, it's alright to think about what's happening in the world. You know? Maybe God wanted you to have an opinion and know the contrast of, you know, how real. Maybe like someone watching how McDonald's in the BMW Avenue. Oh my. Oh my llama.
I'm a bee bitch.
I'm the bad witch. I'm a be rich. I'm a be bitch. I'm the bad witch. I'm a be rich. I'm a be bitch. I'm the bad witch. I'm a be rich. I'm a be bitch. I'm the bad witch. I'm a be rich.
I'm a bee bitch. I'm the bad witch.
I'm a be rich.
I'm a
Be rich. I'm the bad witch. I'm a be rich. I'm curious and unsure of your senses of the whole scheme of things. You know, somebody told me that today. My sister told me that today. A personal perspective means the world to me.
I'm a bee bitch.
You know, whenever I was a little girl,
I'm a bee rich.
I would play pretend all the time.
I'm the bad witch. I'm a bee rich.
And it made me happy.
I'm the bad witch. I'm a bee rich. I'm a bee bitch. I'm the bad witch. I'm a bee rich. I mean, I look, you know, I look beautiful. I'm beautiful. I look beautiful. Two distinct beings intertwined. That's nice. That kind of did throw us off.
Blue ranching. They found one. Yeah, Roblox, I love it. Oh, it's been a while since I played Roblox. I would play Roblox, and I would watch Al Jazeera. Ennyarodasi. Ennyarodasi is Isadora, spelled backwards, and my stage name is Eddie. Twice now, baby. Twice, that's the way.
I'll let you get to me once now, baby, but I'll never let you win again.
I've been human since like 18 years. I can feel what the We're having a dance party for a minute. We're having a dance party for a while. Indeed. It's just literature laugh. Love you too. Jazzy in what way, might I ask? It's been a while since I played Little Fire Girl.
Where you get that little bag from? Where you get that little? Where you get that little bag from?
gotta be there, man.
Better get
Alright.
that low. Get that low. Where you get that low? Where you get that low? Where you get that low? Bag from, bag from, bag from, baby. Bag from, bag from, bag from. Where you get that low? Bag from, bag from, bag from, baby. Bag from, bag from, bag from. Where you get that low? Bag from, bag from, bag from, baby. Bag from, bag from, bag from. Where you get that low? Where you get that low?
Yes, that's probably. Woo!
But how do you actually start? First, pick a niche. This could be anything you're passionate about or have knowledge of. It could be tech gadgets, travel gear, fashion, or even something super niche.
Staying real though. Staying happy. Staying healthy. Staying stiggity, staying alive, and staying tuned.
Feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in these fields. You got the chill. This is the sound that the gods will play to part the clouds. Live rounds on the Gaza Strip, man down. These vibes for the night, while the high is right. Take flight, lean sideways. We master the sky. Blunt rose and a black pouch. Roaming back streets around south.
My payment
Feel the vibe when they blast out. Then let me show you exactly what we all about. Let me get groovy, we Bobby Bird, James Brown and Bootsy Collins. Feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in these frills. You got the chill. Smoke up, that's in the blem. Free up the guys, then part the ends. Jump in the ride, then burn out the rims. Don't stop, don't coach the boy that I'm in. Everything's on the block, hoodie for events. Can't get close, cause you putting on them with a 10 on 10. Back in the back, there's some tap, ready to go and jump in. Flashback, thought you got mad, then he then cracked that. In and out of Dolo, when a new man
Why did
to
he
the bars,
add
only when he crashed that. Till he came back, man, I don't act like. Heads off, yeah, all of that war pack. I could be anywhere, feeling alright. Till the game on the head is so mad at. I'm like, groovy, we Bobby Bird, James Brown and Bootsy Collins. Feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in these frills. You got the chill. Groovy, we Bobby Bird, James Brown and Bootsy Collins. Feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field, feel it in these frills. You got the chill. Groovy, we Bobby Bird, James Brown and Bootsy Collins. Feel it in the air, that's real. Feel it in the field.
Set up to those still awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. There you go. Thank God for it. Salvation and tendency.
Yup.
Since you were young, we connect. That's true. Peace be upon you.
Shake it. Shake it. Yup.
Hold up.
You love them. A long time ago about you. Now we communicate. In a healthy way. Mama. I miss you so much. We are unique. Finally, the ones that serve you. How's life in the university? I don't know if I'm entering the university. Yes. Don't say, yeah, yeah. Life is perfect. And you're a believer. guy, he's not a dummy. He's helpful, I realize. I shock you. I feel loving. I feel loving. I feel loving. I feel loving. What does the flow mean? To stay happy, to stay healthy, to stay alive, and to stay steady, and to stay tuned. I know Mohammed. A dear friend as well. You have a love to me, all of you. God bless you and keep you a believer. You're on your life. That is the truth. There's no answer right now. Thank you, my love. You're very kind. If you're always there, it'll be something to be proud of. Very, very. So what shall I do for you? We have our ups and downs. The function of that is distance. And how far you've come. And after the life is very life. Belief will save you. In your belief, you can forgive. And they caught each other. Big Giggy. Stiggity, stiggity. I trust you. God is for us. Honest. You didn't fail anything. Not to torment. I understand you, dear. Dash Golly G, Wilkers. Fasted for 3 days. It had been 3 months since we streamed like this. Since we streamed this way. From yesterday even until forever. This is the country that the lady is defending. I can see this thing where you talk. Make me wanna show my feelings. Now I'm scared. Wanna show my feelings. Make me wanna show my feelings. Stay with us. We've been streaming for an amazing 2 hours and 17 minutes. I care about is that you're fine and your life is going well, brother. I'm happy and limited. Life is improving after most beautiful weather, I swear.
You can say all kind of shit.
Most beautiful person, I swear. You like Jen?
You can say
All kind of shit.
Stiggity, stiggity.
you can say all kind of shit.
He's great. God bless him.
You can say
I understand you, Ahmed.
kind of shit.
You have been here for me for a long time. Do you still remember me as a believer? The prettiest believer.
You can say.
Do you remember any of the topics we used to talk about a long time ago? I understand you, Ahmed. So, it has been an amazing 2 hours and 21 minutes. I love you guys. I love you, Vibe Tribe. Such an amazing broadcast. Be sure to stay happy, stay healthy, stay alive, stay stiggity, and stay tuned.